Welcome back to Real Clear Radio Hour, brought to you by the Competitive Enterprise Institute. I'm your host, Bill Frezza. This week, we're exploring the economic miracle of Dubai. And for the second half of our show, I'm pleased to be chatting with Walid Daniel, Managing Director of the SPAN Group. SPAN is an integrated supply chain company providing IT systems, warehouse management solutions, and material handling equipment across the Middle East. Walid, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. And I appreciate the opportunity you're extending me to tell my story.
Very good. I understand that you grew up in Lebanon, but came to do business here in Dubai, starting maybe 25 years ago. Please tell us what attracted you here.
In fact, I came to the UAE around 35 years ago. First visiting some parents, and then I took my first job as a young engineer at a construction site back in 1982. I only started this business in 1989. And those 7 or 8 years before starting my business were pretty much important for me to make the decision that Dubai is the place and the industry I'm in is the right industry to focus on.
Just so we get the context, tell us about the business you're in and who you supply.
But just before I started my business, and being a person who was working in the construction industry, I witnessed several construction projects. Okay, many of these were roads, hospitals, hotels or resorts. But again, there was a significant amount of industrial buildings being built to house either goods, for example, distribution centers, or house machinery and people. It means for the manufacturing it.
Now, this was in the early days of the building boom in Dubai. The port of Dubai was already operating, yes?
Yes.
And doing a lot of import-export business.
Exactly. And the momentum, the driver beyond these distribution-oriented construction business was trade. One important component for trade is to be able to make sure you have the right product at the right price, at the right time, and at the right place. And for this, you need a distribution center as one of the components of the whole supply chain.
So warehouse logistics and all the material that goes into it.
So I realized a great business opportunity in terms of being one of the technicians designing, servicing, and maintaining warehousing systems and warehousing equipment. At that time, people were storing their goods in go-downs.
In what?
Go-downs.
What's that?
They call it in this part of the world go-down. It's also a term popular in the UK, maybe not in the US, because in the old times, depots or warehouses were in basements of buildings. So they say go down.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
go down.
They go down. Warehouses were called sheds. People operating or running these warehouses were honest, loyal, long-term, most of them at least, long-term employees of their organization, where their bosses or their management decided that rather than terminating their job, saying them, okay, you would be my storekeeper.
Oh, I see. So it wasn't the highest quality human capital that was working in the field.
Exactly. So,
and yet there was a lot of trade going on, even by the 80s.
Indeed, a lot of trade.
A lot of material coming through the Middle East, coming in and out.
Yes, especially Dubai. Indeed, a lot. But the infrastructure, whether human or whether in capital assets,
weren't here.
What was here at least was spread very thinly. There was a great challenge for those traders to upgrade and to fulfill not only their current requirements or service levels, but their anticipated requirements and service levels.
So they couldn't grow if they didn't have good warehousing?
No. Back in the early 80s, the late ruler of Dubai, Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum, inaugurated the port of Jebel Ali, plus a very important add-on. At that time, people were asking question marks. Hectares of land dedicated for warehouses, just next to the port.
Just set it aside and
set it aside. In 1989, there was maybe 4 or 5 companies operating there from purpose-built warehouses built by the Port Authority of Jebel Ali at the time, at least out of 4 companies, 2 U.S. companies, Black & Decker and Schlumberger. I don't recall whom the other 2 were. So there was an incentive by the ruler at that time to the industry at large. I've done for you guys a good port, and I've dedicated for you
land.
A very fast area, land, for you to
come and build
your business.
Are you familiar with an American game called SimCity?
No.
Okay, probably our listeners were. You are the ruler of a city, and you can zone. You can't build, you zone.
Yeah.
And you invite the Sims, the little computer-animated creatures, to come and build houses and shopping centers, and you watch them build depending on how wise your policies are. Yeah. If you have wise policies, they build big cities. If you have unwise policies, if your taxes are too high, if there are other mistakes you make in laying out the land, the city doesn't prosper. It sounds like the early days of SimCity.
Yeah.
They opened up the warehouse. Were there tax incentives to come here? Were there other trade regulations that made it attractive?
The main incentive there was the fact that you could, as a foreigner or as a non-UAE national or GCC national, set up your own business without having the obligation to have a local partner or a local sponsor.
So they made it easy.
So they made it easy from a legal perspective. It's a customs-free zone. However, if you wish to, it's a bonded area. If you wish to ship from the free zone to the local market, customs have to be paid.
But for transshipping, you didn't have to pay.
For transshipping, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay income taxes. But the authorities there are quite diligent and quite precise, and they need to look at your books on a very frequent basis in order to avoid becoming a safe haven for people who want to evade taxes from their own country.
So they were compliant with international norms.
Exactly. That made it, on one hand, ethically correct, and secondly, business friendly. And that's one of the challenges in business. How can I put the right governance without
attracting the wrong element?
Exactly. Without the right governance, and at the same time not constraining growth, not constraining the economy. Fortunately, Dubai got it right from the start. And this developed when land was offered. The big boys like Sony came, or like Mitsubishi came. Companies with deep pockets.
And this was built to build transshipment facilities.
Transshipment facilities, exactly. Distribution facilities. These are very dynamic warehousing. The average product turnaround for our major customers is down to 11 or 12 days. So these are almost cross-docking operations.
Wow.
Almost cross-docking.
Halfway across the world, 11 or 12 days, they turn over.
Turn around in their warehouse, which means the average staying time, a pallet or a carton stays in that warehouse before being delivered to the next level of the supply chain or to the end user in some cases is 11 days.
And your business was in servicing these warehouses?
My business was in making sure they have the right equipment and systems in those distribution centers to fulfill that ever-changing, ever getting faster turnaround.
Keeping up with technology.
So
you grew as they grew.
We grew as they grew. We also grew because there was the flexibility there. I was going back to the Jebel Ali free zone. Not everybody can afford to lease big plots of lands and build. So what has happened immediately? We witnessed that the Jebel Ali free zone, and now you will see hundreds of them out there if you drive up there, has pre-built 500 square meter warehouses module, each module with a small office.
So these were for smaller companies that wanted to grow.
Exactly. So you could go in, lease out one module or more than one module.
And build it out as your business expanded.
Exactly. That attracted these kind of companies. The third level, and this happened in the early to mid-90s, Jebel Ali authorized third-party service providers to start setting shop.
What does that mean?
Third-party service providers are people who will clear, store, deliver, or ship for you with their own assets and their own people. And this was a convenient way for people who did not want to invent in capital assets, recruit people, buy forklift trucks, train forklift drivers.
So they could outsource all that, basically.
They could outsource all that. And that was a significant step in the growth.
And where did all the staff come from? Eventually this required a lot of people.
Indeed. From all over the world, sir.
They came. The opportunity was here, and they came. And they needed houses, and they needed, schools, and they needed everything that went along with it.
Exactly. I would say along the same time, the logistics consists of two main components: transportation and warehousing.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Now, depending on your supply chain, you could have several steps in that process, or a single step.
Mm-hmm.
If you're shipping from the factory straight to the household, you don't need warehousing. You just need transportation.
Right, but that gets inefficient. You've got a container ship coming from Japan.
Exactly.
You've got to break that down.
Exactly. Along the progress in the warehousing sector, the UAE did the right investments in its road infrastructure, upgraded its harbors, upgraded its airports.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have now is no magic, is good planning and implementations at the right time, so that all components of the supply chain are synchronized.
No bottlenecks.
And why Dubai has got no rivals now at this conjuncture, and at least in this part of the world, it's because it has got the whole logistics infrastructure.
But where's the nearest competitive port to Dubai? Is there anybody that comes close to
this
in this part of the world?
No.
So once they became dominant, success fed on success. And all of this was before the real estate boom. This was before the DFIC. This was before. This was before that. This was the basic building blocks right after the aluminum smelter and the desalination plant.
That's right.
Came logistics and transportation.
That's right.
And the port has a long history, right? The Dubai port for many generations has been a part of the economy, yeah? Here?
Yes. The creek.
The creek.
And then
they really call it the creek.
The creek. And then the old port, which is Port Rashid.
Mm-hmm.
Jebel Ali port is a new port. It's the largest man-made port of the world, but it's a man-made port.
All dredged out.
Dredged in the early 80s.
So how did things change when the new sheikh came to power, Sheikh Mohammed? What did you see happening then?
Yeah. Sheikh Mohammed leveraged the success of his late father on traditional front, Dubai being a trading hub, but said, okay, what made us successful as a central trading hub or a central logistics hub in this part of the world? How we can make other sectors of the economy success? What do we learn from here?
And this was before it was a financial hub.
Yes, well before.
Have you watched that change since then?
I was lucky to be here.
Huh?
I'm one of the lucky ones who can say I happened to be here.
When it happened.
And I've seen it.
So Walid, as this was happening, as you were supporting the transportation, transshipment business, you watched the city grow out of a desert. What was that like?
Almost a miracle. Sometimes when plans were announced, we read them or heard them with a grain of salt.
You didn't believe it.
But then we learned, when you have clarity on where you want to go, when you have the means and the right planning, and you have commitment from the whole business community, at the end, Dubai is friendly to business. Unlike many countries in our part of the world, where the authorities or where the regulators are, I will not say your enemies or adversaries, but who sometimes you feel their job is to make your life difficult.
Yeah, their mission is not to help you grow.
Dubai is a country where you can get a trade license within 24 hours. When you can apply for internet in the morning, get it in the afternoon. Where you can get your work permit within a week. Dubai is unique in that sense.
So it's an open city.
Exactly. If you want businessmen to come and invest here, you have to give them the incentives and make their life easy, as long as they abide by the laws, as long as they don't break the laws.
Not a lot of tolerance for crooks.
No, not at all.
And it seems to have an unparalleled reputation for no corruption, which is unusual in this part of the world.
Sir, I've been here for 25 years. I can tell you, this country is clean.
Has any inspector ever asked you for a bribe?
No.
Never?
Never.
What is it about the culture that caused that to happen?
I don't have any straight answer, but all I can tell you that from what we've read in the news, even senior officials who were caught breaking the rule, no matter how highly placed they are, no matter to which tribe they belong, They were jailed.
They were out.
No, they were jailed. Not only out, they were jailed. Some of them are still in jail, sir.
So there was tough justice.
Big time. There was tough justice.
And that's what makes business feel comfortable.
Yes.
They're not going to be held up. They're not going to be extorted. But they could still fail. There's still this cycle of business. There's still the competition. Yes. Have you seen cycles? Have you seen economic cycles here?
Of course.
Tell us a little bit about that and how the community responded to the ups and the downs.
I think one has to be candid enough and talk about the risks of doing business in this part of the world. We are in a very volatile region of the world, and in my opinion, it's nothing new. This region of the world has been volatile
for thousands of years.
For thousands of years. And it will remain, in my humble opinion, volatile for the thousands of years to come. So this is a given. This translates into ups and downs in business. It does not mean that businessmen should not invest here. But whenever they make decisions or investments, take into consideration the what-ifs of the bad scenarios, I would say.
What if a tough patch comes?
Now, again, if you watch out all over these years, those tough patches, and I'm quite confident to say that for the future, do not stay long. I've been only here for 25 years. When a recession hits this part of the world, it may hit very hard or very deep, but it doesn't last long.
We're having exactly the opposite experience right now in the U.S. We have done everything we can to make it last as long as possible.
I read that Japan now has a chronic type of depression. Europe.
That's the fear.
Europe has been struggling to here.
That's the fear of what we're heading for.
In our part of the world, and I've seen 3 booms and 3 busts. They didn't last long.
People recovered. Bad investments were liquidated.
Quickly.
Now, the most recent in 2008 mostly hit the real estate sector, did it not?
Yes.
How did it affect shipping and logistics?
It affected logistics from a real estate perspective. And this real estate-driven type of inflation is very bad for logistics. One of the key or one of the major costs in logistics is the cost of space.
If you get overextended on space, you have a problem. Especially when a recession hits, now you have too much on your hands. You can't get rid of it.
But our partners out there in the industry are creative enough to buy or lease land on long term in downturns.
Oh, so it's counter-cyclical.
Yes. So if a real estate crash comes in and price for industrial land drops 50%, you will find buyers.
Thinking long term.
And in my opinion, it's easy to find buyers than for apartments or flats or for villas. These people buy it for the business. And they understand that on the long term, this space is going to be required. And this is the right time.
So there's more of a cushion.
I believe, Bill, that you know what's happening in Egypt now. In terms of politics.
Oh, sure.
Or in terms of economy.
Yep.
Our company is witnessing growth in business in Egypt because a large number of our customers are now investing in Egypt.
For the next rebound.
Buying
really?
land because now land, industrial land, warehouses are at a bargain price in Egypt.
So you're seeing a boom from that?
Yes. Egypt may be in a political turmoil, probably is in bad economic times, but in logistics, Egypt is now on a growth path. People are investing. And if they don't buy land or they don't buy the infrastructure or lease the infrastructure now, they may end up next year or the year after or whenever this political turmoil is settled, having to pay...
Too late to get in.
Yeah, or having to pay a very expensive price for that.
So your business then is probably one of the leading indicators of rebound. After the recession hits, you pick up first.
And one of the early indicators of a recession as well.
Oh, people begin holding back when they see it coming.
Yeah.
But you've gotten through this last one. Are you back to your 2008 levels yet in your business?
Last year, we've crossed.
You crossed it?
Yeah. Our downturn was 2009, not 2008. We had a good order book to carry over to 2009 with us. So our bottom down was 2009 and part of 2010.
But you've come back.
Yes, we've come back.
We're seeing a lot of change in the logistics business in the U.S. from robotics. Are you seeing that here yet in the Middle East?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Okay. When you mean robotics, you mean automation.
Automation.
Automation in a simple definition is goods to man. rather than man to goods. A conventional warehouse or distribution center, a warehouse worker will either walk to or take his trolley or drive his forklift truck to the place where the goods are stored, pick them up and bring them to the delivery point. In an automated warehouse, it's goods to man, where either at the push of the bottom or instructions from a computer, the goods come to you, whether these are in pallets or garment on hangers or in cases. This is by definition automation. Now, automation has arrived again earlier than we anticipated in this part of the world.
Now, you would expect with labor being cheaper here, automation would come later, but it's not.
Automation came early, and we thought at the time of the recession that it would be much more delayed. No, sir. Recession drove automation.
Interesting.
Recession drove people to consolidate. Recession drove people to look back at their business.
Become more efficient.
To become more efficient. And labor is not the only cost component in a warehouse. In some distribution centers, this was the least part. Space is a cost. Plus, in modern logistics,
time
is an important cost. The cost of a mistake. With e-commerce, and e-commerce has quite developed here.
It has.
In this part of the world. With e-commerce, logistics has become fragmented. You would ship one mobile phone straight to the end user. A few years ago, you would ship a pallet of mobile phones to the retailer in the neighborhood, and he would sell those mobile phones.
Or maybe to the wholesaler, then to the retailer, then to the... So they're shipping direct now all the way.
Exactly. E-commerce, with e-commerce, you have no other choice. You'll be shipping cases, parcels, eaches.
And you're seeing this now at the distribution warehouse level. Yes. Is Amazon in Dubai? Have they made it here yet?
Amazon are not themselves in Dubai, but they're using a third-party provider to service them.
They are, because they're the leaders in the U.S. in terms of warehouse automation and distribution.
Yes.
Have you looked at a company called Kiva, which we're building robots?
Yeah,
you're familiar with them then?
I'm familiar with them. I personally do not understand why Amazon paid so much money for them. Maybe the near future will tell us.
I had a chance to go in and see Kiva when they were raising their first round of venture capital, and they were just developing their robots. They hadn't begun commercially deploying them yet, and I missed that one. One of my big misses was letting them get away, because they did a tremendous job of building their business, and it looks like Amazon just sucked them right in. And the shelves come to the pickers.
Exactly.
Intelligent shelves drive around the warehouse, come to the pickers, off comes the unit.
Exactly.
It's pretty impressive to watch the videos.
Kiva's novelty was taking the goods to man concept further. Bring the whole picking environment to the man. Let him do his selection of picks and then send it back.
You think that's the future? Something like that?
I don't know. It could be. At least for some applications, yes.
Well, certainly if to end consumers, you would think, putting it all together.
What's driving automation is shorter cycle times, costs of mistakes, shipping the wrong quantities, or shipping the wrong product, or shipping to the wrong destination. It costs you
that costs a fortune. Get it right the first time.
Exactly. Some of our customers have got the rate of returns reaching up to 40%. So
that'll kill you.
That's yes.
In the time we have left, Walid, what do you see in the future for Dubai? How do you see the economy growing? How do you see the region growing? What does the future hold in store?
I'm optimistic with a moderate degree, because the destiny is no more, in my opinion, in the hands of Dubai or in the hands of the Emirates. It really depends, as far as I'm concerned, what do the neighboring country do. Let's forget politics. Let's talk economics. Dubai now has got the infrastructure to be a major player in the supply chain industry of a region that is much bigger than the GCC or the Middle East. For Dubai to further grow, neighboring countries have to become as well.
Have to get their act together.
Friendly to business, put up the right infrastructure. Some early signs are positive, like the GCC rail network. What we miss in transportation in this part of the world is a key component that you gentlemen have in the US
and
Europeans have, which is railroad logistics. or railroad transportation.
Yeah, that grew up for historical reasons. Now it's
indeed. Indeed. From what I read and from my discussions with people involving in planning the GCC role, this is good news. On the other hand, you have legislation. If you cannot be a hub for e-commerce, if your goods have to wait at the border for a certain type of inspector, and it happens to be not during his shift, or
he happens to be crooked, then you have a problem.
Yeah. So I would say optimistic, definitely optimistic. Dubai, if Dubai is equal to X, it will definitely go to 1.5X in the next 5 years, but it could also go to 2X if the neighboring countries, what I mean by neighboring countries are Iraq, Iran, North African countries, East African countries, GCC countries, and the Levant.
Walid, I really appreciate you spending the time with me, giving me very much the ground-up view of what's happened here in the last 25 years. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you.
That wraps up our show. Thanks for listening. This is Real Clear Radio Hour, brought to you by the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and we've been talking to Walid Daniel from the SPAN Group in Dubai. I'm your host, Bill Frezza. If you have any comments or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at bill@realclearradio.org. See you same time next week.